I'm Joseph,
And I'm Nick.
and this is Fish Jelly.
I'm really in the mood today.
Oh, again. All right.
Monte Carlo!
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
You know, we woke up to another mass shooting today,
Yep.
so that's charming. Like, so some 18-year-old white boys drove several hours to a supermarket in Buffalo and shot 13 people, 11 of whom were black. So probably racially motivated.
Probably.
Well, I mean, the updates at this, it's still in the morning here, so, but I mean, it's just like, okay, this will be in the news for a day or two, and no changes to gun laws.
And this person was arrested alive, I'm presuming. I didn't read about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't even.
If it's a white shooter, they're alive.
Oh, well,
So-
I mean, I don't know. It's just interesting. Like every time this happens, it's like a thing, but then zero changes to how we manage guns in this country. But whatever. I'm not necessarily against. Well, I am. I mean, we shouldn't have weapons, but or we shouldn't need them anyway. But I know that people have a right to carry arms or bear arms, like that's in our Constitution. So unless we're going to change that, then it is what it is. I read a thing, or Heather Mattarazzo.
Oh, yeah, from Welcome to the Dollhouse, and she's a fun little part in Sorority Boys.
I read an article about her because she had a series of tweets that were kind of like alarming.
Like Amanda Bynes, like tweets?
No, they weren't like that unhinged, but I'll read one of them because I think it gives a good sense of what was happening. She tweeted, "I feel at a loss because I feel I have done the work for a long time with no complaint. I have taken the disappointments, the rejections, etc., and maintained that rejection is redirection. I have had continual faith in the universe, but today something broke. I feel cast." And then she goes on like, "I just need a win, a life-changing win, because this shit ain't it. Fuck." So then she goes on to say, I mean, just a number of things like how something about her financial situation, which I need to find, but basically like how, oh, most people think I probably get paid a lot of money, but I really don't. And most working actors don't. I drive a beat up fucking Prius, and I just bought my first pair of new shoes in over 2 years.
I believe it. I mean, she has been, Parker Posey used to joke in the 90s, who was in, over 100 films, and said her dad still had to help pay her therapist bills. Yeah, they don't pay working actors a lot, especially in independent film. And
well, you think like...
she just had a small role in the new Scream reboot, and, I'm sure that didn't
Yeah,
pay
but
any
even
either.
if she got paid $100,000, it's like, well, after you pay...
Everybody else that has
your
to help
agent,
you with... Yeah.
like after you pay everyone, and then you have to save some for paying Uncle Sam, that's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
I think people feel like, oh, you got 25,000, 75,000. Well, you're not getting that every week. You're getting that maybe like 2-3 times a year. I mean, when it's all said and done, these people are probably making the equivalent of minimum wage, which is probably really challenging. Well, I know that it is because we've known people who are they're more famous than they are rich.
Yeah.
And it's awkward because people recognize them.
Well, look how they shamed what's his name at the Trader
Jeffrey
Joe's.
Owens, who people always thought was my doppelganger. Shaming him for going to work is insane, but I think it also, I mean, it's tricky to people put themselves out there, wanting to be actors or musicians, have some level of fame, but then the public expects.
Well, I think that's what needs to be dismantled is public expectation. We have to allow humans to be human.
But so the only way to do that is probably more transparency. Like, it's expensive to be...
But that all ties in, the pressure that women feel to have to look a certain way as they age. Like that all ties together.
When I was doing hair in West Hollywood, there'd be a lot of actors who would come in and they would talk, and then agents and people, and just like people sharing like how much people's contracts are, how much they make per episode, how they have to pay this person, that person. they make very, at the end of the day, people who are quite famous. We're not talking like the people on fucking, I don't know, what's a popular TV show? What's the
Family.
modern? That's what I was thinking. But even, well, I'm not going to share that but even on that show, one of the people was not, they were supporting a huge family on a salary that sounds impressive, but when you break it all down and then this person's supporting many people, it's not, they're no Seinfeld. But yeah, there are people who are on popular television shows, reality shows, who are not getting paid. Because you think if you're on a reality show, you might get, and we're talking like some of the more popular ones, maybe they're getting like 3,000 an episode, 20, if even 1,000 an episode, and then they film like 12 to 13 episodes, and then they're under contract to like sort of do promotional things, and they film for several months. So you think like you got paid $12,000 and you're kind of tied up for like 6 to 8 months. That's not enough money, and you can't have like a steady job because you're too busy doing this thing. So people have to make a lot of sacrifices, but that's the double-edged sword, is like everything is so fake and everyone's like, filming in these fancy homes that they rented on Airbnb and driving
Todrick.
Oh, driving these fancy rented cars and, wearing clothes that they borrowed because their friend works at Gucci and they have to return the shit the next day. And, you present yourself in a certain way. So then it's like you're forcing yourself to live up to that. And then you can't.
Kind of like the people we were...
Oh, that's a good segue. So we were invited last night to a fancy, like, I don't know what you call them. An exhibition at an art gallery in Beverly Hills, which I already knew was not my scene. But I figured, we're quality people. Maybe we should venture out and do things we wouldn't normally do. But I was wrong. That was not for me.
I knew exactly that's how it would feel. I knew it.
I didn't think it'd be that bad.
Oh, I did. There's 2 rooms.
So we get there, and a friend of ours invited us, which was a very nice gesture.
A lot of wall space.
And we get there, and he arrived before us. So he said, just when you get to the door, tell the person you're my guest. So we get there, and first of all, the 2 chicken heads working the little thing they really were like chickens with their head cut off. They weren't acknowledging people in the line. They had like they were wearing earpieces like they were Secret Service.
Oh yeah, and people would
So
come
I
out.
was thinking it was going to be like a big deal. I thought that we were going to walk into some huge gallery with major artists and things in there.
Oh no, I already knew that.
No, it was 2 small rooms, but they could not get their shit together.
No.
They were like so confused, and then I give them the name.
To be fair, they had to go through a sheaf of papers.
Oh my
with
god!
all kinds of addendums.
They had like what looked like the ledger in like a funeral home.
Yeah.
Like when you go to a funeral and everyone has to sign. It was something that thick with so many names and so many
Clipboards.
Post-its. And my first thought was, who's just rolling up? I was so confused. Like at these events, isn't the purpose to get? Because everyone in there to me seemed like they were friends of people who no one is really going to buy any of this artwork.
No.
So why would you want to be so strict about who gets in? Why wouldn't you just want anyone who appreciates art to view it? So that already is weird to me. Trying to make it exclusive and then keeping me waiting for like 10 minutes before I can get in. Because we were standing there like, I'm not even sure why I'm here. Right. I don't know who this person is. I don't know what I'm walking into. And then you have me waiting like it's so exclusive. Like they have to confirm.
That it's just that's the LA way. It felt.
Oh my god,
very
it was
much
so
like,
gross.
But it's like, why don't we have tablets that we're looking at RSVP lists on? I mean, they do that for press screenings. Why can't we do that for?
Well, you're getting way ahead of what they were capable of, but we get in and it's 2 little rooms, but to get into them, there's like some
You had to step.
oblong cutout through a wall that was not comfortable to walk through.
No, and if you were inebriated,
Or wearing stiletto heels, you'd be in trouble. And then we get inside, and the artwork, 90% of it, because there were probably 10 pieces, and of the 10 pieces, 9 of them were like digital monitors that had an image on it.
Yep.
So that was interesting. And then those images range from $8,000 to $12,000. So you're paying up to $12,000 for like a 52-inch monitor. Not unlike the monitor many of us have in our homes we watch movies on, with like a piece of artwork on it that's like a GIF, so it kind of moves a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's like static.
Yeah.
So it was like these geometric shapes that had like oceans in the background, so the ocean was moving or the waves. So $8,000 to $12,000, and then there was one 3D piece that was being guarded by a security guard that just looked like all the images on the monitors, and I didn't even bother to look how much that was.
It would. I mean, not, the art itself was fine. I mean, they had maybe 5 different motifs, and it was probably more interesting reading the statements about their intentions than the actual output, in my humble opinion. But it was boring. You know, I think at a point we were playing a game deciding who looked the most dysfunctional.
Well, so then the room is filled with people who want to seem like, I guess, glamorous. I mean, it was half and half.
But couldn't spell it.
And you know what's interesting about LA? The people who were trying really hard probably had $0.
Probably.
And then there were people who walked in wearing like linen pants and Birkenstocks with dirty toenails.
Yes.
Those are probably the rich ones. So it was a very interesting mix. And you could also tell who probably was just there because they wanted to be somewhere, because there were no hors d'oeuvres. There were alcoholic beverages being served, but they only had like 2 servers.
4 at a time.
Who would bring out 4 drinks at a time.
And there were vultures, yeah.
And then you could tell like whomever sort of rushed that person probably was just thirsty, literally and figuratively. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was my first time doing something like that. And it just reinforced like what I don't like about, and I'm sure that experience is not unique to LA.
No, of course not.
But I think because we ourselves live in kind of a bubble, like we've created like what I think is like a normal life within like this craziness. I think I forget sometimes that it's like there's a lot of bullshit out here.
Oh, yes.
Which is really what going last night made me think. Like, oh God, people are so pretentious and everyone's a wannabe, and it just made me think like making friends is so difficult because like everyone's just so damn fake.
Yes.
Anyway, that was not a very trying to stay positive.
Yeah. Did you want to address the other?
Oh well, might as well get the. Okay, so every time we talk about Marvel, because we've only reviewed like 3 Marvel movies or 2.
Oh, I don't know.
And then we did the Moon Knight series.
Yes.
Which was 6 episodes. So all those videos, every time they drop, we get a litany of comments about, like, because, you know, we're not Marvel fans. And then we received a lengthy email about that as well. And I think I just wanted to address that my intention is not to, like, offend. And also, I don't think people who like Marvel movies are like dumb or stupid.
No, and it was an email that I felt bad reading, that we came off a certain way.
No, in fact, I think that people who enjoy Marvel movies deserve better. I think that Marvel fans have been loyal to a brand and to a.
But I want to be clear that you can like things, and it's never my intention to say because you like something that it makes you remedial or you're lesser than, or you know, there are plenty of things that I am absolutely fascinated by, in love with, that I know most people wouldn't agree with, or that just you know, I can't defend that they're of quality, but I still like them.
Well, I think it's like, I'm not calling Marvel movies trash because again, there are a few that I really like. But I think some of the things you like that may not be quality, they're deliberately meant to be trashy.
Some, but not everything.
Or not all, and it doesn't matter. I think the point I was trying to make is that Marvel movies are an institution, and there's a huge fan base, and these people have been so loyal that I think the fans deserve more consistency in the quality of these films. That's all. So I think when I'm being critical, it's just like, this is insane that a franchise of films or a universe of films that have all of the money. And we know they have all of the money because the casting is out of this world. They get people who don't even make sense in these movies. You have Charlize Theron running around looking crazy. Like, clearly they have money. So why can't they, like, we went to a family event last night and talking with someone who is a big Marvel fan, and they were saying that they thought that they're just running out of ways to tell the same stories, right? Like, weave these characters into these different films. And I think, oh my God, The cat is terrorizing us. Yeah, so I think that's all I mean. I'm not speaking for you. I just think that I'm just saying that I feel like Marvel fans deserve more consistency in the quality of the film.
Well, it's not like I set out personally. I don't set out being like I'm gonna hate this. Like somebody that RZA, the last movie RZA directed, the producer had messaged me on Facebook, sending me a link to that Lindsay Duncan scene in Birdman. I was having a good day till I read your review. It's like, well, I don't set out.
Well,
Like,
you do have biases. I mean, you don't go into a Marvel film thinking you're going to love it.
no, we all have biases, but I'm not the person that goes in thinking like, oh, I can wait to eviscerate this. But in fact, the best experiences to me are when you have low or no expectations and you come out really liking something. Like,
I think
you like this more than I do, but Thor Ragnarok in the Marvel universe kind of had that effect for me.
Well, I think it's like, okay, so I really love Thor Ragnarok, but then watching Moon Knight was like the quality of this writing,
Or the two previous Thor films.
it's just like, where is the consistency and like what is the rush to put out this shit? Like I just don't understand. But again, people can like what they like. I'm not making judgments about the people who like it per se. I just more am like the people who make these movies. Like, let's do better.
Sure.
But again, people can like what they like, and even if it is crap, that's fine.
But
now, I will admit, sometimes when people say they like certain films, and it's not just Marvel movies, like a film that I thought was terrible, like people who are saying they like the new Firestarter. I mean, I'll admit that I think like, what's wrong with you? Or you can't tell me this is like the best of the best.
Sure. But again, like I said, I like things that I know people have their reaction to. And I think it's just in my nature. I don't know if it's like growing up gay and I was having to kind of defend how I thought. Like I'll have an automatic explanation about why I think so. And I'll allow that, oh, I know that it's got problems.
Anyway,
But anyway, to this listener that had written the email, who I also have to thank, because this was the person that recommended Elin Harris, who was an author I was not familiar with, and I'm very happy to know about now.
Yes. So moving on, for some reason, why was I watching Tom Cruise interviews?
Because you were watching.
Because I was watching Scary Movie 4, and in the end of that, there's like Deborah Wilson doing her Oprah impression with the main character pretending to be Tom Cruise.
Tom Ryan.
So then I'm like, yeah, his name's Tom Ryan in the movie. So I thought, oh, let me watch the actual interview where Tom went on Oprah to announce his love of Katie Holmes.
Ugh.
He's crazy.
And when he goes back and drags her out.
And then he literally like caveman style grabs that lady and drags her out.
And you can see PAs running like
they're confused.
Like, oh, he's coming back here.
Then we transitioned from that interview to an interview he did around the time of Tobey Maguire.
Jerry Maguire.
Oh, Jerry Maguire.
Tobey Maguire.
I don't know. When Jerry Maguire was being released, Tom went on Rosie O'Donnell.
Oh God, and all that whole.
Oh,
Tommy, can you hear me?
Oh my God, I always forget how embarrassing it was that this obvious lesbian just kept saying how much she loves Tom Cruise, but it wasn't like she loved him as a person. It was like she has a crush on him. That's her boyfriend. He's a cutie patootie. Oh my God.
But it was a way to deflect those rumors, and the 90s were. The 90s, looking back, the 90s were more difficult than I think for gay people.
Sure, I don't want to make, I'm happy that she had a nice career, but it's also like, girl, you didn't, it's just like how Ellen would do that thing, and it's like so cringy, but.
And then had to take a hard left when she came out, and everything was about being a lesbian, which the world was not ready for.
I need to look up interviews with Rosie to see if she ever talked about that.
I'm sure she's been asked that. And she's obviously a smart person. I'm sure she has. I haven't bothered to look that up. But.
Moving on. So Jesse Williams is in a play called Take Me Out, which I've seen a couple of times in Minneapolis.
I've never seen it.
Like a stage production, a local stage production. And I was just, video and still photos of the nude shower scene were sort of leaked, which are of him, which kind of got a lot of buzz because A, he looks great, B, his penis is, it looks abnormally large, but it seems super thick to me.
It looks like a large penis. I guess I just see a lot of them, so it wasn't shocking.
Wow. But then this question of like consent and sexual harassment, which is interesting.
It's interesting because you're on. That's like stage is different than film, but also it's like it's out there for public consumption in a way that it's a gray area.
To me, I think when you enter a theater and they say no photography,
Right.
like they said that, and then they put your phone in those sleeves and lock them, and then you still take photos. Because, you know, anytime you go to a show where they take your phone and put it in a sleeve, they're not like frisking you for additional phones.
Right.
Or if you say you don't have a phone, they don't check you for it. So clearly someone had a phone. I think when you're told not to do something and you do it anyway, that's a violation.
I agree.
But I also feel like, well, in the same vein, it's kind of like when you send someone a nude photo
And they use
and then
it,
they share it.
they abuse that privilege.
It's kind of like, well, I mean, yes, one could make the argument that if you don't want nude photos of yourself being leaked out, then don't take nude photos. And certainly if you do take them, don't share them. But it's also like, but I told you not to share it. Mm-hmm. And you did it anyway. Mm-hmm. So my ultimate thought is I think it's just gross to be told not to do something and you do it anyway. And then it's something like this, where you're showing, like this was meant to be for like this intimate space.
I agree.
Like the people doing it have a right to tell you what they want. And when you enter, you can agree. Because I'm sure if someone said, no, I want to be able to take photos of this, then they would say, well, you can't come in and here's your refund. Like, so yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. Moving on, there's an entry in the Sorry to This Man section.
Oh, yeah.
When we were talking about Firestarter, the 2022 film, you were listing off the cast from the 1980s film, and you mistakenly referred to Drew Barrymore's mom's character as being played by Morgan Fairchild.
Which is so, you know, I had just looked at that cast list, but I think it goes to show in my mind how I file away Heather Locklear and Morgan Fairchild.
So in fact, Heather Locklear played the mom.
Which but I knew.
If you look at pictures of Heather Locklear and if you look at pictures of Heather Locklear as like a 60-year-old woman, and then you find pictures of Morgan Fairchild as a 60-year-old woman, they look very similar.
Oh yes, they do. But so in my mind's eye, I know the difference. But yes, they're very similar. And you know, also those kind of mental mistakes, I didn't have any kind of reverence for either of them in my heart. So
I did. So when you said it, I was like, how could I?
That's why you were so surprised.
Yeah, because like, how could I forget that? Because I do like both of them,
and also
did at a point.
But that character's role is much smaller in the original as compared to the remake as well.
All right, moving on. So films that were released we didn't cover. Operation Mincemeat.
Yeah, that came out on Netflix. A new film by John Madden, who many will know as the director of Shakespeare in Love.
The football player?
No, John Madden, the director of Shakespeare in Love, as I just said.
Well, the football player could have directed that too.
This British World War II film.
What are you saying about football players?
Saying that he probably wouldn't have
They're
won.
too stupid to
of
direct films
course
about Shakespeare?
No, of course he could have directed it. I don't know how the result
You're
would be.
already in trouble about Marvel. Now you're going to have NFL fans mad at you.
I didn't say he couldn't. I don't. Well, I'm arguing about this film like it was of great quality. But
you did watch it?
Yeah, I reviewed it.
Oh.
But not with you.
Oh, okay.
You didn't want to watch it. I do like Kelly MacDonald's. It's based on a true story called Operation Mincemeat during World War II, where British intelligence tried to mislead. They were going to invade Sicily, and to evade the Nazis finding out, they created a fake plan to invade Greece by tossing a corpse in the coast off of Spain with a letter in it. Gave them this information, and
Brilliant.
And it worked.
Brilliant.
But it is interesting. It felt like a movie made for your grandparents. There's almost this comic tone to it, which is like, well, you know, it's World War II. But again, I do like Kelly MacDonald's. Colin Firth is fine. Thomas McFadden had nothing to do. You know, if you're a John Madden fan, I guess it's worth a watch. His last film was Miss Sloane with Jessica Chastain.
Next, The Last Victim.
We didn't review that. That is, there's the cat food.
Just feline-related interruptions.
Jesus. Ron Perlman's in it. It's a neo-Western, and you had passed on reviewing it.
Lastly, Mao.
It's a documentary about the designer Bruce Mao, who I'm ignorant about, but I'm told it's about his indefatigable positivity.
Moving on. This week's been so busy. I feel like there's so much to do and none of it can get done. And then you're getting ready to go to France today.
Yeah.
So we only watched one movie for fun, which was Senior Year, starring Rebel Wilson.
Oh, I watched another. Sorry, I forgot about the other thing. I did watch something else, but go ahead.
So I only put it on because I was working and I thought, oh, let me put something stupid on in the background. But this movie really grabbed my attention. I actually thought it was quite funny. It's very queer.
Yeah.
I would say the worst part of the movie is Rebel Wilson. But if you take her out of it, it's a really funny, kind of smart movie. It kind of reminds me of like if you mix Mean Girls with GBF.
Yeah.
You know, GBF is that movie by Darren Stein.
Yeah, who did Jawbreaker.
I can't believe I remembered that.
I can't either, but we see him around all
But
over
I see
LA.
him a lot, so maybe that's why I remember. And I really like that movie. When I had my studio, there was like a coterie of films, like 10 films that I would watch on repeat. And GBF was one of them. Some others that were on repeat were Event Horizon.
Really? I do like that film.
Yeah, I watched Event Horizon like a million times.
Baby Bear.
Prometheus.
Oh, God.
I watched that on... Well, because that was when I had a lot of straight men whose hair I would cut.
Yeah, and you used to call the scientists hot, who look like hulking Nazis, but...
The scientists?
Those big white creatures, isn't that what they call
You
them?
mean the origin of man?
Yeah, but...
They're called the scientists?
I think so. I forget what they're referred to.
They were good looking. For like a cartoon alien thing.
They look like men in West Hollywood at 24-Hour Fitness, but...
Oh, you're just a hater.
Maybe.
So, yeah, the straight guys I would put on either Prometheus or Event Horizon. So I would watch those a lot. Of course, Tu Wong Fu, Mommy Dearest, and then, yes,
GBF.
GBF.
I was getting Clueless vibes from it a lot, too.
Oh, yes.
And Alicia Silverstone makes a cameo.
She does.
In a nice
in
little
a nice
moment.
scene. The basic story is there's a young lady who, her senior year, it's 2001.
2001, yeah.
She's like the head cheerleader, cheer captain, and she's doing a stunt, and she hits her head, and which causes her to go into a coma. And then she wakes up 20 years later, modern day, looking like Rebel Wilson, who's just stuck in like 2001.
In her mind, yeah.
In her mind. So, and then she wants to go back to high school to finish her senior year. She also had an enemy played by, as an adult, Zoe Chow. She had like the hottest boy in school who she was dating. But it's her trying to reconcile like that. And I think the most refreshing part, the music's really good.
It is.
Because it's all 2001 stuff. And then we see the girl, Rebel Wilson's character, her bedroom in 2001. And this movie is like your age.
Yeah, I was in high school.
You were that character's age. So, yeah, seeing all the posters in her room. Of course, there's Janet Jackson in there. So, of course, I like that. But the music's great, except the final song, like at the prom where she slow dances because, spoiler alert, she becomes prom queen. They made the choice. They spent so much money on the music, and then the final dance song, like slow dance song, it's a Celine Dion song.
From the 90s.
From the 90s, so it wasn't even popular in the year she was in senior year. But it's like a cover, like a cover band version. I thought that was really weird.
That is weird.
To spend all that money on all these popular songs from the early 2000s.
Well, how much does an Avril song cost from that? How much
Yeah,
does Skater Boy cost?
but they didn't. But they couldn't have found a ballad from 2001 that everyone would know instead of doing fake Celine Dion.
Sure.
That really bothered me. But the best part is, it's the adults who are like being petty and being bullies.
Yeah.
Specifically, Rebel Wilson and Zoe Chow are being very awful to each other. But the high school students in 2021 are actually very progressive, very thoughtful. The way they've set up their school is like they want equality and parity, and there's a lot of queer characters. Like the most popular girl in school has a boyfriend, but the boyfriend is queer, and
They have an open relationship.
they have an open relationship, and then like Rebel Wilson's character's like best friend is this very femme gay boy, and like everyone's very kind to everyone. The lunchroom is like long benches so that the people don't feel segregated, and so it actually made me feel really nice, like watching the high school students.
It has this idea of, you know, even people that were my age grew up in this kind of traumatized way that we're continuing these cycles of abuse, and that maybe I think it felt hopeful in a way that maybe these younger kids will have a better chance of breaking out of that. But
Yeah. So
but also it reminded me it's a lesser than kind of vibe to something like Strangers with Candy or Peggy Sue Got Married.
oh sure.
But yes.
I would definitely recommend it if you have Netflix. Put it on in the background; it'll catch your attention.
Yeah, it was fine.
And there were moments I did laugh out loud.
Yeah, it has.
Namely, right in the within the first 20 minutes, Rebel Wilson does. What's the movie with the lady from Roseanne where her daughter jumps out of the car?
Lady Bird. Yeah.
There's a Lady Bird moment where Rebel Wilson jumps out of the car.
Yeah.
So it starts off funny. Okay, moving on to you watched something for fun.
I somehow, with all these can screeners, I made a point to watch One Cut of the Dead. It's a 2017 Japanese film directed by Shinichiro Ueda, which of course was remade by Michelle Hazanavicius. However, the guy who directed The Artist, which you've seen. His film is opening out of competition, the Cannes Film Festival Final Cut, and it's a remake of this film. And I did not enjoy that.
Okay.
It's about a group of people making a movie about zombies, and they're actually attacked by zombies, and the director thinks that he's finally got a great film on his hands.
That sounds interesting.
I'm tired of zombies.
All right, projects of interest, The Shrouds.
Oh, God. So David Cronenberg hasn't had a movie in 8 years since Maps to the Stars, and where I'm about to see Crimes of the Future at Cannes, and he's already announced a new project called The Shrouds that's going to star Vincent Cassel. It's produced by Saeed Ben Saeed, and it's something to do about new technology where you can watch your dead ones decompose. So that's exciting to me.
There's a sequel to This Is Spinal Tap.
Yeah, when was the original? 85?
I've never seen that movie.
Yeah, so that is...
I walked past that video cassette
so many times
in the video store as a kid so many times, but never picked it up. And the man on the cover is from like Howard the Duck, right?
Jeffrey Jones?
Isn't he in Howard the Duck?
I don't think... Is Jeffrey
What
Jones...
do I know Jeffrey Jones from?
Heartbreakers?
No, as a kid.
Oh.
It would have been 80s.
It would have been Howard the Duck.
Yeah, and so I don't know. Like it always caught my attention, but
I think
you're.
aren't you thinking Michael McKean?
Talk about this quickly and let me look.
Anyway, it's an early Christopher Guest, of course, directed by Rob Reiner. Apparently, the original cast and Reiner are returning. So that is big news, I'm sure, to some.
I'm thinking of Michael McKean, and I know him from
Tracy Ullman.
Oh no! You know
Lenny
I know
and Squiggy.
him from Laverne and Shirley.
Yeah.
That's what I know him from. Anyway,
But he's been in so much.
Y'all know I'm old. Okay, Limonov.
Wasn't he just? We watched him in that Gary Busey movie, Hider in the House. Isn't he married to Mimi Rogers in that?
I don't recall.
I think so.
Okay, Limonov.
Is it Mimi Rogers? Yeah. Limonov, The Ballad of Eddie, which another Cannes filmmaker, Kirill Serebrennikov, is about to see Tchaikovsky's wife. He is directing Limonov, which is based on an Emmanuel Carrère novel that after Cold War in 2018, Pavel Polakowski was supposed to direct it and instead is producing. But anyway, that's exciting news to me.
Audiard.
Jacques Audiard. God, you haven't seen any of his films because you passed on Paris 13th District, which just released. Which
You didn't like that movie.
I didn't like it.
So
but,
lucky me.
But he's. I recommend Read My Lips, The Beat That My Heart Skipped. Un Prophète was his 2009. That was a big deal for him. I do like Rust and Bone. And the Sisters Brothers. He is making a Spanish language debut musical that so far is called Emilia Perez, and it is about a Mexican drug cartel leader who becomes trans so he can reunite with his children and avoid legal ramifications. And it's being described as kind of like Mrs. Doubtfire. They've cast the lead as Carla Sofia Gascon. and Selena Gomez and Zoe Saldana are in talks for supporting characters. That sounds strange and amazing to me.
Next, The Tiger.
Oh, so Miroslav Slaboshpitsky had a big breakout, I want to say, in 2014 for his debut, The Tribe, which I think you'd like. There's no dialogue. It's set in a deaf school of kids like abusing each other in the Ukraine. He was going to film something in the Chernobyl area that I think fell through. Then he announced this project called The Tiger several years ago that was going to star Brad Pitt. Well, he's still attached, and that's still coming together now, and it's just been announced that Alexander Skarsgård and Dane DeHaan are attached.
Lastly, They, Them.
I sent you the screenshot about this. It's already filmed. It's going to come out on Hulu in August. It's a Blumhouse-produced horror film starring Kevin Bacon about gay conversion camp.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that looks interesting.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting to me.
All right, unfortunately, there's an entry in the obituary section. Fred Ward is gone, y'all.
Of Kevin Bacon, 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, the Tremors co-star.
Everything I read about him, like, they mentioned the films he's been in, and like none of them sort of list Tremors in like the top, which is funny to me because that's how I know him. But
yes,
but I recognize the other films he's in. Yeah.
Silkwood. Yeah, Fred Ward. Because I think we reviewed the Blu-ray for Tremors that came out, and I did remember finding Fred very handsome when I was a young child. Mostly for Tremors, I guess, but and then somebody had recommended, is it Cast a Deadly Spell, the TV film? Yes, I did go back and rewatch that, which is a lot of fun. And I do have lots of memories of him as Naked Gun 33 and a third, which we had a lot of conversations about Pia Zadora last night, who's also in that movie.
Oh yeah. Well, he was 79, so goodbye to him.
Yeah.
All right, so we finally got to a movie that someone recommended. Because people recommend so many good films for us to review, but it's just not possible usually. Because we have like a mental list, but it's just hard because there are already films we have to watch or whatever.
Yeah.
But the stars aligned on this one because when I mentioned it to you, you were like, oh, I haven't seen that one, and it's on Amazon Prime.
And I owned it on VHS as a kid because I had a Faye Dunaway phase, but I think I was never interested because it was a Western.
Okay, so the film in question is Little Big Man, the 1970 American Western film directed by Arthur Penn, who some of you may know, I didn't. But
oh my God. So Arthur Penn, basically, his 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde, which gave Faye Dunaway her big break, that is listed as kind of the start of the new American cinema movement, which throughout the 70s, where we had like all this fantastic cinema that studios produced that you just would not have today.
So when I looked up this movie quickly, based on the recommendation, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm interested. I don't love Westerns.
Well, it's a revisionist Western.
So all I had in my head was it's a Western. But then you said, oh, I'd watch that. So I did, and it is not at all what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
It's a comedy.
It's a comedy. It's also very angry. It's a very distressing film.
Yeah, the juxtaposition of violence and humor is very interesting. Overall, I would say I thought this movie was very, very good.
It's excellent. It's based on a 1964 novel by Thomas Berger, who's a famously reclusive author. And the novel was adapted by Calder Willingham, who wrote The Graduate.
Yeah, I would say it's excellent. It did feel a little long to me. It's 2 hours, 20 minutes.
Yes.
And it felt longer than that. But I think it's just, there's just, I had to stop taking notes because I had too many, because there were so many things I thought were funny. But it is the story of like the world's oldest man, played by Dustin Hoffman. Mm-hmm. The film opens with him being interviewed
by William Hickey,
and he
who became a notoriously old man.
And Dustin Hoffman's character, who's supposed to be 121 years old, his character's name is Jack Crabb, and he tells the guy, like, he sort of casually mentions the Battle of the Little Bighorn, which is like Custer's last stand.
Yeah.
And the interviewer is like, girl, are you saying you were there? And he's like, turn this fucking microphone on. So then the film is basically this old man telling his life story. But basically, Jack Crab, we meet him as like a kid, and he's like traveling with his family, his white family, when they're attacked by, I believe, like a Pawnee tribe
Yes, the Pawnees.
who kill his parents, leave him and his sister. The sister escapes, and
No,
then
him and the sister are picked up by Shadow.
Cheyenne
a
tribe.
Cheyenne tribe member, and because I think he takes pity on them, and they mistake Carolyn, the sister, for a man. So that
she's yeah, she's a strong looking lady.
yes, and then she runs away in the night.
So then Jack, Dustin Hoffman's character, is left to be raised by the Cheyenne people who call themselves human beings.
Yeah, there's something about the translation that there aren't English words that rightly translate that, so that would be.
But the bulk of the film is sort of Jack bouncing from being like a white man to an indigenous person or a human being, which includes, a form of blackface. But I think it's done in a respectful way.
Well, I think it's for protection both from the sun and so he doesn't stick out. Like
To both the
Cheyenne,
indigenous people and the white man.
Yeah, the Cheyenne paint him.
So it's not meant to be a joke. It's like him sort of like existing.
It's survival. Yeah.
But so it just goes back and forth until he has a run-in with Custer, General Custer, and then the film culminates with the Battle of the Little Bighorn. And then sort of a character throughout the film is who Jack refers to as his grandfather, which is this like the leader of this Cheyenne tribe.
Old lodge skins.
And so, which I thought was maybe my favorite character.
So Chief Dan George, who was Oscar nominated for
that man. Oh, he deserves it because, well, and the writing in this is so
great.
strong because that man is talking so much shit.
Yeah.
And the way they talk, because they all speak English, but the way the human beings talk, they speak very good English.
Yeah.
So that already is funny that they're not speaking their, sort of native language or tribal language. But then the grandfather just says so many like random crazy things in a very calm, sort of flat tone.
Kind of sweet though.
And sweet.
Yeah.
So funny. But then also a lot of poignant things. I mean, the end of the film is after the battle, which the Cheyenne people win, or the human beings, defeat the battle. They win this battle against the white men. But then the grandfather says, I'm ready to die because we're never going to beat the white man. And he's just old and blind and he's been through too much. So he goes so that little speech he gives, I thought was poignant. And then there's a previous battle where the white men are just like massacring all the
and that's where they kill his
human beings.
wife Sunshine and his child with her.
Yeah, that was
that's
hard to watch. But the humor is so, I think, fun because we get this scene of the grandfather talking about why he wants to die, and then he goes up to this like cliff to die, and of course his grandson Dustin Hoffman follows him, and then it starts raining, and it wakes the grandfather up like he didn't die, and he's like, Am I
still in this world?
Yeah, have I moved on to the other world? And Dustin Hoffman's like, no. And then the grandfather gets up like he's disappointed. So the last shot of the film is them walking back to their...
Well, before we switch back to the interviewer.
Right. And then it's just the grandfather talking crazy. Talking about how he is like having sex with a snake woman. But, they're known to copulate with horses. But I don't believe her because...
So I call her doesn't like horses.
So
but of course she's lying.
But yeah, so I named her doesn't like horses. But she's lying. Yeah, I have a million notes. I don't even know if I'll go through them. It's just too much. But
this feels like I think Forrest Gump was trying to do what this film does, but without the skill or magic that Little Big Man has.
There's so much about it that's good. First of all, it feels epic. Even though I felt like it kind of ran a little too long for my taste, it does feel grand. I think Dustin Hoffman, who plays like from ages like 14, 15
to 120. I think he's in the Guinness World Book of Records for playing a character with the longest lifespan.
Yeah. But when he's supposed to be like a younger teenager, I mean, he kind of fits the role because he's small and he has the body of like a 12-year-old. Mm-hmm. So I thought he did a great job. Faye Dunaway, she's not in the movie a lot. She's just in the beginning and the end. But Jack Dustin Hoffman is being raised by the Cheyenne people. They get like hemmed up by some white men, and then Dustin Hoffman gets taken by the white men. So now this like preacher man is going to raise him with his wife, played by Faye Dunaway. But we find out Mrs. Pendrake. But we find out Faye Dunaway's character is a hoe. Like she's just like a nymphomaniac. But then they're very religious. Mm-hmm. So everything is about God, but they're full of shit because she just wants to have sex with everyone. But
that's not her husband, who's old and ugly.
Yeah. And the time span of how long he's with them is not clear, but it seems like it's not very long. Maybe like a month. Mm-hmm. When one day she's like, oh, I'm going for my Wednesday grocery run. And Jack wants to go with her. And she begrudgingly lets him come. But then we realize she's not going to buy food. She's going to hook up with the fucking soda shop man.
Yeah.
And Dustin Hoffman witnesses it. And he gets upset and leaves. Because during this period, he's become religious. But then he denounces religion after he realizes that it's all bullshit. But the scene where Faye Dunaway's having sex with the soda man, and she's like, kind of saying like, oh, the devil, and...
Oh, help, help.
Yeah, like she's screaming for help and saying the devil and sinful and
you
all
heathen.
This. You heathen, but then she's moaning in pleasure. That was really good.
And then, she becomes, I liked her snood in those scenes. And then she
looks really good.
She looks great. And then fast forward where she ends up being the lover of Wild Bill, whose dying wish, while Jack Crabbe is there in the saloon seeing him die, is to give this prostitute he likes this money, and it ends up being her.
And then ends up being Mrs. Pendrake, and when she sees him, she's embarrassed, but then she's like, I always...
She's like, I always had impure thoughts about you. But she has a good line about how it's not fun, that this is a sinful life, but it's no fun.
Yeah. Well, let me just go through my random notes. There's a point where grandfather is doing like the hi, but the way he's doing it, I thought it sounded like Britney Spears.
Yeah.
I kept thinking every time Dustin Hoffman was pretending to be a human being, a Cheyenne, a tribal member, like, where did he get his foundation from? Because they say it's they call it Indian paint, mm-hmm. which I'm sure is like mud and clay or whatever. Yeah. But it looks like foundation, so it's just kind of funny. It
probably is.
When Jack first gets to Faye Dunaway's, when Dustin Hoffman first meets Faye Dunaway, she gives him a bath. And that was a funny scene. So after he leaves...
He hooked up with Martin Balsam,
who's like
a snake oil
salesman,
Mr. Merriweather. He has a really good line too, because he has an exchange with Jack saying that the way you were raised, that there's this moral center of the universe is wrong, and he has a really good line I liked about those stars, twilight and a void.
So then, while he's with the snake oil man. The snake oil man gets hemmed up because he's giving people this potion that's making them more sick. So then someone comes to kill him because he's hurting people. And the person who comes is this man who, as the audience we can see, is probably a lady. Mm-hmm. And that lady turns out to be Dustin Hoffman's sister, mm-hmm. who's a very strong-looking lady.
Mm-hmm. Played by Carol Androsky.
But that was a funny scene because his interaction with her basically amounts to him learning how to shoot a gun. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was funny. At a point when... Because now Dustin's sort of been a white man for a while. He goes back to being a human being. He is reintroduced to some of the people he had first met. One of whom they call a himane, mm-hmm. which is like a two-spirit person.
Little horse, yeah.
So like a trans woman.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting because this film was made in 1970. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they handle it, I think. They do make his character seem kind of faggy, but...
well, he's flamboyant, but the narration is like, this person's greatly respected in the community.
Yeah, they do make it a point to explain like his people or their people respect them, and then later on in the film, this two-spirit person, Little Horse, asks
Jack
Dustin Hoffman if he'll take her as his wife.
He's like, well, come to my teepee, I can be your wife. And he goes, thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Then early on in the film, when younger Jack is riding with his Cheyenne people, they get accosted by some white men, and Jack saves this other character whose name I forgot, like Big Business Bear, younger Bear,
Big Business Bear,
Big Business Bear,
starring Bette Midler.
No, Younger Bear. So now throughout the film, Younger Bear, Dustin Hoffman saved Younger Bear's life. So then the joke throughout the film is like Younger Bear
hates him.
He hates him because he owes him his life.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, Younger Bear ends up saving Dustin Hoffman's life.
And the way that this story poses it is that Younger Bear is the one that kills General Custer.
But earlier in the film, Younger Bear, there's a point in his life when he's a contrary, which means he does everything backwards. And then we see him walking backwards and doing stupid shit. I thought that was funny.
Well, they introduce it as like, well, the contraries, the way they live they drive themselves crazy.
Then when then Dustin Hoffman marries some woman named Olga, and then when he goes back, Olga goes missing at a point, but
she's abducted.
She's abducted
by the Cheyenne.
By the Cheyenne. But then before that, Dustin tells grandfather, like, I married this woman,
this white woman,
and he goes, the grandfather goes, does she cook and work hard?
He goes, yeah.
Does she show pleasant enthusiasm when you mount her? And he's like, yeah. And then grandfather goes, that surprises me.
He's like, he's like, I tried one of them. She didn't seem very enthusiastic.
Then there's a point when the Cheyenne people are describing like, oh, there are like black, like the concept of black people. Mm-hmm. And then they say black men are not as ugly as the whites, but just as crazy.
Yeah. And they call them black white men.
There could be a drinking game for the number of times grandfather says, like, anytime something's introduced to him, he's like, I think we should smoke about that. Like, all they want to do is drink and smoke.
And then Younger Bear ends up being married to
Olga.
Because he becomes Little Big Man again because he's looking for Olga, and the only way he can find safety in looking for her is to live with the Cheyenne in this land that's been reserved for them.
When Younger Bear is talking about his wife, he's trying to make it seem like he's the man of the house. And then when Olga steps out, she is so overbearing. She beats him with like a duck.
Little Horse is like, his wife henpecks him.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. We only have like 6 minutes. Then Dustin Hoffman marries a Cheyenne woman who has like...
Sunshine, who is Shadow's daughter.
But then at a point, she's like, oh, there are so many women here whose men have died and they're lonely. Basically saying to Dustin Hoffman, like, will you marry my 3 sisters and pleasure them? Mm-hmm. So there's a scene where he does go... Digging
Bear and Corn Woman and...
So they have some fun names, but there's a scene where he has to go and like pleasure the 3 of them. Like, what?
And they're all just coughing. What is it? Digging Bear's like, don't go to her. She's too tired. And she's like, hacking up a lung. He's like, I think she's...
Then General Custer, I'm not a historian, or I'm not a history buff, so I don't know much about...
But he was
known to be...
Oh, yeah.
But in this film, they make him seem like a buffoon.
Well, he was an idiot.
It's funny. My last note is
who's played by Richard Mulligan of Empty Nest.
Yes, a show I watched. And then when we see that Faye Dunaway... Oh, you already mentioned how she describes herself as a fallen flower.
Yeah, no, but I liked her line about how it's not any fun when you have to do it every night.
Yeah.
But he's with her in like their drawing room, and the madam comes out and just starts chewing her a new asshole. It's like, what are you doing sitting on your ass? And then she sees Dustin Hoffman. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, I didn't know we had company. Let me know if you need anything.
Yeah, we call this the place where you can find anything. Yeah, I don't know, just very impressive. But I think I'm glad I watched it now. I think if I had seen it, as a younger teenager that was obsessed with Faye Dunaway, a lot of this would have been lost on me.
I think this is a really good example of how comedy can approach taboo subject matter and sort of send a message and create dialogue while disarming people with humor, which is why I think it's so important that we don't censor specifically comedians, because it's like, how else are we going to talk about things?
These horrible fucking things.
People get so offended by what comedians say, and it's like, what? So you want just some random person to approach you in the grocery store and say, I want to have a serious talk about abortion. Like, that's not how... People don't want that either.
Right.
So it's like, you have to present it in a way that's palatable, and I think comedy is that thing, and this film, I think, is a really great example of sending a very clear message and honoring the truth while making it something that, you know, might make people think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, good job.
If you like Chief Dan George, I highly recommend The Outlaw Josie Wales, starring Clint Eastwood. He's very good in that as well. You know, of course, this is reminiscent of something like Dances with Wolves and how it at least attempts to honor indigenous peoples from a white perspective. But yeah, I was very impressed. I'm not the biggest Dustin Hoffman fan, but I really like.
I mean, I do like Tootsie.
Oh, Tootsie's great. And there are similarities between what his character has to do.
And I could rewatch Rain Man talking about Tom Cruise.
Oh, God.
But we need to wrap up. So you're leaving for France today.
I am.
I'm sure we'll do the podcast next Sunday, like via, I don't know. I'll have to record our Google Voice conversation.
Oh, my God.
Or maybe well, you know what we did last time? On Spotify, we can do like a video podcast. The audio still translates to Apple Podcasts, but for people who listen to us on Spotify, they can actually see us talking on Zoom. So we'll probably do that. And then I'm sure we'll do an update, maybe like on Wednesday or Thursday.
Sure.
And then we might watch one movie. I don't know. Did you RSVP me for the Bob's Burger movie?
I didn't, but I can.
We'll see. I might watch something.
I mean, I would like to see that. Obviously, I won't be here, but...
I might do a video.
You should.
On my own. I don't know.
It.
The one video I did on my own was, what was it, Great White?
Yeah.
That shit was hard.
As you know, it's a lot of work to have to do it all.
Yeah, it was a struggle to record that video for me.
But you did swimmingly.
Not that I don't think I can speak on my own. It's just I'm so used to having you to bounce off of that it was not easy. But we'll see. Maybe I will.
Just do your research, get some of the facts.
We'll see.
We all mess up, as I did. Sorry, Ms. Morgan and Ms.
Fairchild.
Ms. Fairchild, Ms. Locklear.
Ms. Locklear.
I know you're not the same, but sometimes. I
have a quote.
I had a quote from Thomas Berger, who wrote the novel Little Big Man. If you want to really relax sometime, just fall to rock bottom, and you'll be a happy man. All troubles come from having standards.
Oh.
I think he was a depressing person.
Oh, I kind of like him. Anything else?
No.
Bye.